recording now. All right. Well, welcome to this month's Rare Birds Mentor Lab on maximizing social impact in your brand story. Now, for those of you who do not know who I am Sarah McLaughlin, the General Manager at Inspiring Rare Birds, and I am joined today by Tiff Ng. Hope I got that right, Tiff. We were practicing your surname. Founder and Chief Storyteller at The Social Story. Now, to begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we meet today, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders participating in this meeting. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and recognize and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal people and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of New South Wales. Now, before we get into Tiff's presentation, for those of you who are new to the Inspiring Rare Birds community, our mission is to support and promote diversity and inclusivity, where opportunities in entrepreneurship and leadership exist equally for everyone. Now, we are best known for our mentoring programs, but we also offer a range of educational masterclasses. We host online and in-person events, providing people with opportunities to build their networks and to grow with the Rare Birds community. Now, if you would like to learn more, please do indicate your interest in the survey that I will send at the end of the session, or feel free to reach out to myself. My email address is sarah@inspiringrarebirds.com, and I will pop that into the chat. Now, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. You will see there is a little icon. Introduce yourself, comment, connect with one another. This is really a great opportunity, although you can't see one another, to connect via chat and then, obviously take it offline. Now, there is also a Q&A tab, so please feel free to add any questions throughout the presentation, and we will answer those towards the end. And I can hopefully pop you on camera and potentially off mute if you do wish to ask the question, but otherwise just type it in the Q&A and I will get to it. All right, now, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Tiff Ng. Tiff is the founder and chief storyteller at The Social Story. She brings over a decade of expertise in social media to empower impact-driven businesses to tell their stories and connect with audiences. With a diverse background spanning tech, food, and entertainment, Tiff specializes in bridging the gap between brands and their audience, focusing on authentic storytelling that drives meaningful engagement. Now, passionate about the transformative power of social media, Tiff champions inclusivity, accessibility, and sustainability in every digital interaction. Beyond metrics, she believes in social media as a tool for positive change, advocating for impact storytelling that inspires action. Now, at The Social Story, Tiff and her dedicated team are committed to helping clients amplify their voices and share their stories in ways that resonate with their audience and drive tangible results. With a focus on social impact, Tiff is not just a strategist, but a partner for those looking to make a difference in the world through their digital presence. Welcome, Tiff, and I'm now going to hand over to you. So I will stop sharing, and obviously you can pop your presentation up.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that introduction, Sarah, and thanks everyone for joining. I also want to acknowledge the Aboriginal lands that I'm on and that you are all calling from. They're a culture of storytellers, and so that is something that is so integral, obviously, to my life and my business, and really spur us on as we continue the work that we do. So let's get started. Today, we're talking about how to authentically integrate social impact into a brand story, and how to do it in an authentic and impactful way to get that message across to consumers. So what we'll be covering is how to actually find that natural link to social impact with whatever business you are running. Using that to build long-term relationships with your audience, and then leveraging the tools and opportunities of social media for that maximum impact and cut through, so that impact is infused in everything you do and reaches the audience. So, firstly, finding that impact story. So it's never been more important for brands to actually have a strong tether to what their impact is in the world. Some stats here of just consumers actually actively looking for brands that are doing something proactive and actually willing to pay more for these brands that share in their values. The fact is that, it's not about having to completely change your whole business model and become a nonprofit or a social enterprise, but it's about placing your business in the context of the world that your audience actually lives in. And your audience isn't just buying from you for this one interaction. It's how is your business a part of their lives? And their lives are full of, caring about the environment, caring about helping people less fortunate. And so when you're able to find a natural link of your brand into their lives, and not just be one transaction, that's where brand loyalty comes from. That's where deeper connections and repeat customers come from as well. So here I've got even just a few examples that are doing it so well. Who gives a crap and played it forward and thank you, have that impact really baked in as a social enterprise business model, where your community output and your social output is higher than profit, versus even, Ben & Jerry's and Patagonia, still a lot more commercial in their business models, but really taking those stands in, social issues that are important to their business. There are many ways to do this as a business, but it's also about how you communicate that. So the best marketing always puts values and brand first. This is a case study of Airbnb. During the pandemic, they released this brand story that was not just about, obviously, Airbnb being a place where you can, have a nice holiday, but really standing forward for this idea of acceptance and love. And these commercials were about what is the life that we can offer, this aspirational lifestyle that our brand represents. And that's where the impact really comes forward, because they're able to infuse ideas of diversity and inclusion, and trying to address racial inequity in everything. And these brand pieces, while aren't purely selling points, they're not saying, and now sign up for Airbnb here, but they do end up reaching down to that bottom line, because it creates an emotional connection to the brand. And so when you're ready to buy from them, they're top of mind. They are the ones that are sharing the same values as you, and you're able to enact your social values through this brand. And so it's about reframing what we think about marketing, right? It's not just about sell, sell, sell. It's about broadening out the story of who you are as a brand and how you can reflect your audiences and what they care about. A key way to actually anchor down what that impact can be for your business is actually coming from the UN SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals. These are a great way of highlighting some of the key issues in the world that might make sense for your brand. It's also notable that certifications like B Corp and a lot of different impact measurement frameworks are based down in SDGs. And so being able to anchor it in these kind of formats are a great way to actually understand what makes the most sense for your brand. And in doing so, it's about what that natural way to have that conversation is. It won't make sense for a alcohol brand to suddenly say, we are building cities. or something like that. What is the way that your brand and what you stand for, or something that you are personally passionate about, actually makes a natural link? So here are, on the right here, 2 examples of something we did with our client, Rebel Sport, that does have a core value of inclusivity. And we wanted to talk about pride in sport. And so during Pride Month, we created these videos with athletes who are in the LGBT community. And in consultation with people already working in pride in sport, we determined that one of the best things that we could do as a platform for Rebel was actually amplify these voices and shine the light on these athletes. And so that was a natural and easy way for us to use the existing brand of Rebel in a really positive and impactful way that actually helps to promote that value, but also was, the most effective thing we could do for that community at that time. So it is about, that match between where is your brand existing already and who are they talking to, and how can you actually speak to the audience in the most impactful way about the values that you have. So kind of going that step further of like what that actually looks like, the most common way to actually talk about impact, the first step is usually through a campaign, right? So whether it is, a series of videos you're doing or a sale or something like that, it's about creating that one moment that is really shareable and memorable and that people will actually talk about. So 2 examples I've included here is Thank You, who are very well known for their like huge stunts that draw attention to the work that they do, where initially it was selling water and now more of the like health and wellness products. And with those profits, they get used for projects that deliver clean water to countries that need it. And they're able to create this really huge moment that was media worthy, that was shareable, and that was memorable, so that people took notice and wanted to delve into, okay, now I've heard this brand, like, what are you actually doing that's different from everyone else? Who Gives a Crap is also always a really great example of a social enterprise that really nails it with their marketing. This was one of my favorite campaigns they did around Valentine's Day. So it was this idea that you could flush your ex and submit love letters, or rather heartbroken love letters, and they would recycle that and turn it into toilet paper. Why I love that example is it does a few things that are really key. It can piggyback moments where people are already talking and interested in that area. So yes, Valentine's Day, there's always some sort of sale or moment from a brand, and doing something that's really interesting in that space will always have cut through. In the same way that we did with Rebel, we focused our campaign during Pride Month because we knew a lot of attention would be there and we'd be able to get cut through from other people who were also talking about it. And the second thing is that the brand still was really clear with this Who Gives a Crap example. It was about toilet paper. It's what they do. They do recycle, they do create recyclable toilet paper, and they've got that kind of finger on the nose of what people are talking about, that, for a lot, Valentine's Day isn't all about the love and chocolates. Sometimes you need to speak to the people who don't have that as well. And so that initial moment is something that you can utilize, that shareability, and maximize the impact of the reach, rather, of what you're doing by having a moment and really focusing down on one campaign where you can put a lot of your resources in and really drive that home. But the most important thing about having these initial moments is continuing the story afterwards as well. So it's not just about, great, we have this one big video or big moment, and then we drop off for the rest of the year. You want to give your audiences new ways to continue to engage with your story. That's the difference that social media brings over any other advertising platform. Like, it's not just about the one television commercial that you put up. Social gives you unlimited amounts of times to continue connecting with the audience in different ways of doing that as well. It means you can show different sides to the story, and just keep that relationship with your audience going. I like to think about it in terms of, say, a film release and how they market that, right? You get the whole film or even the trailer, but now you also can look at behind the scenes or bloopers or cast interviews and fun games that they play. It's all these different ways that people can still engage with that initial story. So this is actually, the image is not appearing there, but it was an example from quite a number of years ago when the client Netflix had House of Cards, and we jumped in on this one moment of where Malcolm Turnbull succeeded in his leadership spill and just sent out a quick tweet from the House of Cards, I like your style. Great. It was a big moment. A lot of people shared it. It's covered in the news. But the continuation of that was actually, we created a whole political campaign going the Underwoods for Australia. People were able to look at, get bumper stickers and have merch. We had different social media content of like memes and shareable things so that people could continue to engage and we remain top of mind. And that's there he is. Australians for Underwood. It's a lot of great fake political ads. So particularly when you are talking about impact in general, it's important that this journey continues. One, that's just how social works. On average, it takes 8 touch points to close a sale. So you do want to keep that conversation going. But with 8 touch points, you don't want to just keep selling and selling and selling. You want to bring them through that journey of like, why should they care about your brand? What are the differentiating factors that make you different from a competitor brand? And particularly in the impact space, it does give you a little bit more grace and leverage when you are still figuring it out. Not every brand is perfectly sustainable or embracing all the diversity and intersectionality that's needed. But the pursuit of that is really important. And where you are able to continue that story and integrate it into your content strategies, that's when it looks like you are actually consistently showing up and not just changing your logo to a rainbow on Pride Month, but embracing it throughout what you do. So in that journey, we do put a little bit of structure to it so that you can very clearly define where your audience is and how to keep getting them down the funnel. So the usual marketing funnel we look at is this awareness, consideration, decision, nurture, right? And it's a great way to keep thinking about the sort of content that you're doing and how it can be different every time. So I actually like to think of this customer journey more like an actual relationship. So, like you're meeting them for the first time, you're just trying to find commonality. So that's where a lot of that kind of campaign stuff works. You're finding what they're talking about already and how you can enter that conversation. So like, you know, when you're at a party, you're not just going to come in and announce and like, hi, I'm Tiff. I have 3 interest areas. You may come and talk to me today about them. You're trying to actually, you know, find a commonality in a conversation and then join it. And so awareness content can really be about that. Yes, they're talking about Valentine's Day. How can I bring something interesting that shows off my brand at that point? Consideration is where you get that a little bit deeper. You're showing more about yourself, your product benefits, your services, all of those things that can make that relationship stronger. There is the decision. You are, you know, asking quite directly for them to take an action, buy from you, sign a petition, or whatever that might be. But then the most important is also nurturing. And how do you keep telling them that interesting story and show them different sides? The thing with social is that it isn't always that clean cut. Your audience at any point could be people who have been long-term supporters of your brand, and you do need to, you know, keep nurturing them. But at any given point, they're also coming to you from the first time. So building out a robust social strategy is about doing content for each. And not every piece of content has to do it all and get you from awareness all the way down to nurture either. You can have the posts that are kind of for people who've been following you along, or the ones that are reintroducing the key values of your brand. It's about keeping that mix up. So again, who gives a crap? Always love them. They quite clearly illustrate this audience relationship. So that kind of awareness piece, how are we speaking that same language? Where is that connection that we can create? And something, again, that's shareable, and you can utilize that shareability to reach even more audiences. Then the consideration, how are they actually talking about what they do and their differentiating factor to other toilet paper? That decision, really clear, get your savings, like, you know, buy now. And then nurture. I love how they do nurture, which is utilizing user-generated content from their existing customers who get creative with their products and are able to share that and kind of give that nod to your customer, going like, we see you, we hear you, we celebrate you, which is great. So one of the biggest challenges, particularly for brands that are very deep in social impact, you know, the social enterprises, one of the hardest things is getting cut through. You know, when you're competing for views from, you know, huge brands who have that existing brand recognition, or even just dealing with the craziness of the algorithm, that's when it's really important to get quite strategic with your audience. So if you don't have the resources to have that huge campaign moment and go big, then see how you can use your smaller audience to then ripple it out into bigger impacts. So who are those early adopters? Who are those people who already understand the need that your business is addressing? Who are the people who automatically don't need the sell and will support you? And then how do you actually use them to activate, use them to share that story? So that's where you can build strategic partnerships and utilize like collaborations and tell those stories further and get them to share. Or a key way is also, identifying those larger targets who can be ambassadors to speak to you. The fact is that most people who are using social media are using it in what we call the lean back moments. You know, they're not actively engaged in wanting to buy things. They're using it to connect with people that they know. So the more that you can really build that community and become a brand that they know and that they can feel that emotional connection with through that impact storytelling and through that journey you have, brought them along with. That's when you will have those ripple effects go out and build those long-term relationships with them. So getting into the kind of more nitty-gritty of each post, and how that impact can really filter through even the smallest things. Here is some really quick tips to always have in your mind whenever you are sitting down to create a social media post. So firstly, accessibility and inclusion. These are just such simple tips that should be ingrained into every post, but allows so many more people to experience your content online that might not be without them. So including subtitles for all videos, particularly for those hard of hearing, but also because most people actually scroll through their feeds on mute. So it actually just makes complete sense to ensure that you always have subtitles. Including alt text. So that's a description of the image that you have. So a lot of platforms now offer the opportunity to embed that into the image itself. So particularly like Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. When you post on those channels, there's always an option to edit the alt text. And it's just a short description that a screen reader can actually describe what that image is if people can't see it. You think about it even in terms of if a website doesn't load in time and they have the description instead, having that alt text is really important. So you can do it embedded in the image, or just have that image description at the bottom of your caption so that everyone can still experience what the visual element is, since social is such a visual platform. So even in your design, keep it clear and easy. Don't over clutter it and use contrasting colors. There are websites where you can just input your brand colors and make sure that the color contrast is good for people with vision problems. Actually minimize the use of emojis in your post. They don't read out on a screen reader very well, so you don't want to overdo it with emojis, as fun and visually appealing as they can be. And just think about that language, breaking it up into even dot points or numbered lists or different paragraphs so that people can very easily capture the information that they need and not get a whole block text that fills up their entire screen. In terms of diversity in imagery, so particularly if you ever need to use stock imagery or even like emblems that you are trying to use, a lot of the time people are using things that perpetuate certain stereotypes. So these are actually 6 predominantly free resources that are incredible, that just give a wide breadth of the sort of images that you can use. So say WSC in tech, so it's women of color in tech. Because if you're just doing a Google search or a Shutterstock search, you often just get the white male as a boss. And that's not the usual narrative for many of us. Pexels and Unsplash, both as free platforms, are community driven. It's not, there's a lot more diversity there than, say, a Shutterstock, because it's not just the Shutterstock photographers. Anyone can upload their images there. Nappy Co for Black and brown women. Iwaria has like real images of people, particularly in Africa. So it's not just the poverty porn you see a lot of the time. Gender Spectrum Collection for queer narratives in different settings. And then climate visuals. They're real images of the climate emergency and also of certain projects that are working in sustainability. So it's just about kind of rethinking the sort of images that you are creating and the narratives that they represent as well. In language, always people first language and people identity first. So, this spans across people with disabilities, culturally and linguistically different people, and always kind of trying to err on the more side of empowering and strengths-based language. Every part of this can help build a better image for a lot of people and be more empowering. And so I've linked there. Also, the OzGov actually do have a great style manual that cover a lot of different groups and the best use of language that you can be using. All of this is to say that even the smallest details in a social media post or just the messaging and the marketing that you're doing can have a direct impact on the world you want to create and also just people in general. So it's important to kind of keep these things in mind and embed them in yourself as well. And in the impact space, being authentic and human is so integral, particularly if you are creating your own social enterprise or the impact side is of personal importance to you. You're already halfway there because you can speak directly to why this is important. So even for our business, one of the main reasons why accessibility and disability and diversity are important is because of my own experiences as an Asian Australian woman and not seeing the advertising that is reflective of me and that is helpful to my community. So I wanted to create something really different. And being able to share those kind of stories, help people, identify with why we're doing it, want to come on board with us. And it's proven for all businesses is that when a CEO or their employees are seen as the faces of the business and not just this brand and logo corporate idea, consumers are going to feel more connected with you. And particularly when it is about cause marketing and I want people to, make changes or do something more than just buy from you, showing up that human side can build trust and actually engage those emotions. So whether it is about your own personal journey or even telling the stories of the people that you are helping, being authentic and human, remembering what it is to tell a story to a friend and being able to bring that out in your marketing can be so important. And I shout out to Sean David Christie of Played It Forward, who has done an amazing job of that in recent times and talking about his personal connections to food and building an amazing social enterprise that helps people that don't usually have access to jobs to work in restaurants under his brand. And a lot of his personal story has come out even recently with ABC features and things like that. And hearing that personal connection, seeing the human, seeing even the people who work with him, and he's been able to help has been something that makes you just feel a lot more connected to his brand, even when it's difficult to get reservations at his restaurant. And the thing is, when we're speaking in these spaces and wanting to deliver impact narratives, when in doubt, ask. There's nothing worse than just presuming something works when, especially if you don't have lived experiences. And even if you do, being able to canvas a wider, more diverse group is always really helpful. I always use the example of actually a friend of mine was working for a brand that wanted to do something around Chinese New Year and had put a phrase of just like Happy Chinese New Year into Google Translate to get the characters and hopefully use that. She asked me, hey, can you just double check this translation? And lucky she did, because it was actually a very rude phrase that had been translated. So even something as small as that is really important. to just double check with the communities that you're actually speaking to. Again, I have that example of another post we did around Pride for Rebel Sport. And this was in direct communication with organizations who work directly in the space for, LGBT communities, community sport. And, it's not something I know intimately. So when we are able to actually have that conversation with them, raise up these voices where we can, and make sure that, if we're putting brand power behind this issue, that it's done in a respectful and accurate way as well. I do want to give a shout out to Our Race, who have a lot of great resources about when you are sharing someone else's story in particular, how to do that more effectively for them as well. So my final note is, the good really is in your hands, both as, business owners and operators and as marketers. You'd rather do like one really impactful pieces of content than just 5 pieces of fluff because you read somewhere that you have to post 5 reels a day. So when you're able to look at things with a bit more strategy and structure in mind and intention, then that's when you can have a greater impact with the communities that you want to help, but with your audience in general as well. So my final note is we share a lot of resources that can help get you started on this journey. So that story activation workbook is helping drive out a lot of the things about your brand story for one, but how it connects to the audience and the wider impact. A strategy template, and also a cultural calendar that has a lot of these different, international days that are more impact focused. So you can read more and see what makes sense to piggyback off if need be. And that's me.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Tiff. And we are about 7 minutes towards our time, but hopefully everyone can stick around for a little bit longer. I just had a few questions that have come through, and just to kind of continue the conversation for anyone that does want to stick around. And I'm just going to throw some questions at you, Tiff, and kind of you can just go into a little bit more detail. I know you have touched on a few of these items, but I thought it'd just be really interesting if we can get into maybe the nitty gritty. So I think my first question here is really that, individuals and businesses and obviously brands are wanting to ensure that their sustainability claims stand out, that they are genuine, compliant, are building trust, and obviously loyalty among their consumers, while also effectively communicating their commitment to the environment. Now, how does one achieve this while avoiding, I guess, greenwashing?
Yes.
Fine line.
Greenwashing definitely is huge. And it is something that now can be enforceable. So the most important thing is actually being able to substantiate your claims and not just use, broad terms and getting quite specific about what that is. I think particularly in the product space, if you're saying 100% recyclable or compostable, that doesn't actually mean anything. It is about being really specific about what those claims are and having a really clear sustainability policy elsewhere. I think for a service-based business like ours, it can be a little bit more difficult to figure that out. But I think with every business, it's about looking at your whole process and the product, like the supply chain for products, and looking for ways to maximize them. Those sort of things. I'm not the clear expert. There are a lot of great experts out there who can guide you through, even from like what packaging makes sense or things like that. But it is about kind of thinking through every step and how can we make it slightly better. And then when you're marketing it, making sure that it is specific and true and that you have places for them, audiences, to read more about your whole policy in particular.
Great. And I think that actually brings me to my next question. That's really around, what are some of the common frameworks or models for measuring social impact? And also, how can organizations choose the right framework based on their objectives? Is there kind of a clever way of doing this, or can you give us some guidance and tips?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a few different, there's impact business models that are out there, and they can range from the common side of things of donating profits or making monetary donations, or being able to, play it forward, offer opportunities for people who don't usually have it. So if you are looking to have impact completely in there, I would suggest looking at the B Corp certification. It's becoming one of the most globally well-known, and you can kind of measure where you are with that. But also social enterprise, predominantly through Social Traders in Australia. And they have kind of those three different models of how to measure your social impact versus your profit, because still going to make money. So in terms of measurement, it's about really defining what your social mission is under those frameworks. Yeah, it could be a much larger conversation, but I'll say go to Social Traders and B Corp, because then they'll have the impact measurement frameworks based on your business model that you can measure.
Great, thanks for that. Now, in a time obviously where authenticity is, really important, many people, and this is also comes to anyone that's not even running their own business, I think, many of us really do face the challenge of aligning our personal values with our professional identities and businesses and brands that we run and own. Is there a perfect balance between personal presence and brand representation?
I mean, it really is up to each individual. People can see through inauthenticity for one. And so it's got to be what's natural to you. But I think that's why I always say moving with intention makes the most sense. I think from a kind of small business point of view, you do look at the metrics, and we see it ourselves. When I do see the business owner talking, or people, that's the content that resonates well. People want to see people on social, and so being able to show up as a business owner and sharing that story can be really empowering. But at the same time, you've got to do what's important for you as well, and putting those boundaries up. So that's where thinking about your different platforms and where it makes sense to share and not share. And yeah, even for myself, I'm not going to be one to make TikTok dances about mine. That's just not me. That's not going to be natural, and I'm not going to force it.
Yeah.
What I do is writing. So we'll have blog posts and things like that, and post on LinkedIn. So where you can show authenticity that also is, comfortable for you. That's the balance you need to strike, is where you feel comfortable and where your boundaries lie as well.
Great. Now, I am just going to see and open up to the audience. Are there any questions that anyone would like to ask Tiff? If you want to pop them in the chat, I'm more than happy to read them out. Or I know we are up to time, and so I am more than happy to circulate, Tiff, I hope you don't mind, your email address, in case anyone does have a moment of, oh my goodness, I wish I'd asked this question. And it often does happen when, afterward you kind of sit with that information, you go back to your own work and you're like, oh, that would have been a great one to ask. So we will circulate an email after this just with some further information. And Tiff does have, I believe, a handout. So we will get that over to you. Now, if everyone could just sit around when you do close down this session and fill out the survey when it pops up. Tell us what you enjoyed about the session, or or what you'd like to hear in future. And we are always welcoming new mentors to the Rare Birds community. So if you would like the opportunity to share your experience with a mentee, please indicate this in the survey. Or if you know someone, a friend, a family member, or just someone that you think from your own network and community that you think would be a wonderful mentor, please let us know. We would love to welcome them to our community. So I'm going to end it off there. And thank you again, Tiff, for this session. It was very informative. And thank you to everyone who did show up today. As I said, I will circulate Tiff's email address if you have any further questions. And we look forward to chatting with all of you again soon. Cheers.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Bye.
Bye.